Hey everyone, in today's video we're going to be building this crypto charts application using React where user can see market charts and prices for top cryptocurrencies. We're going to use NextUI and TailwindCSS for our UI. We're going to use ApexCharts to implement our crypto charts inside React. We're going to use React Query to connect our app to crypto market. We're going to have a sneak peek of Zustand as a state management solution. And finally, we're going to initialize our application using wait. So let's get started. So let's start by initializing our application using wait. Alright, now let's install TailwindCSS. So since we're using wait, we need to also install PostCSS and AutoPrefixer. Alright, now let's initialize our TailwindCSS. Now let's open our project inside VS Code. And we need to add these to our tailwind config.js. And we are also going to include these inside our index.css. I'm going to delete everything and add these. So next, let's install NextUI. So we're going to use individual installations since we're using only some of the available packages. So first, I'm going to use install core packages. So we only need the button component from NextUI. So let's install. Alright, next we need to add these modules to our tailwind config. And now we need to wrap our application inside NextUI provider. And now we need to install our TanStack query library. So let's add that. And we're also going to install ApexCharts. So and for the Zustand library, we're gonna add it later on in this video. So let's start developing our app. Alright, first thing I'm going to do is to remove these codes from the project. And also these imports. I'm also going to delete this app CSS file, and we also don't need these use state and this app CSS import. So let's open our application. Alright, let's start by creating our application layout. So I'm going to expand this window and inside my app tsx component. So first thing, we need to have a container. Inside this container, I'm going to add two components. First one is the header component, and we're also going to add a dashboard component. So let's create them. Inside this header component, I need to use some icons from React icons. So let's install React icons. All right, let's create our header component. And finally, we need to add our icon from React icon. All right, now let's work on our dashboard component. All right, inside this dashboard component, we need to use two components. First one is details view, and the second is market currencies. Before we build these two components, let's add these colors that I used to our Tailwind config. So open your tailwind.config.js. Inside theme and extend, we have a property named colors. All right, inside these colors, we're going to have three colors. So I'm going to create a constants file, and I'm going to store the colors inside this constants. Now let's use the colors to add to our config. All right, now we're also going to add the colors to our NextUI plugin. And we also need a primary color. So let's add primary color to our colors. And lastly, we're going to add the main darkest color to our root. Now our application background is entirely turned into main darkest color. And next we need to work on these two components. So let's create them. First, we need to create a details component, details view component. So inside details view, we need to use fragments So here we need a filter section, and next we're going to have a chart section, and lastly we need to have a details section. So let's work on filters section first. And here I'm going to use button group component from NextUI. All right, now let's add our details view to the dashboard component. And we also need to add dashboard inside our app TSX component. And don't forget to add the header component. And this is our application so far. So we need to have a separation here, and we need to fix this flex issue inside header. And also let's change this margin to 3, and we're fine. All right, I'm going to get back to details view, and I'm going to add a name section here. So it's going to be replaced with our fetch data from the CoinGecko API. So next we're going to work on chart section. So here we're going to have a market chart component that we're going to build later on. But now let's work on details part. All right, now we need another component here named price change 24 hours. So it's basically going to show our price changes during the past 24 hours. Now let's skip this for now and build the rest of the details part. And I'm going to expand this so you can see better the code. All right, this is our details part. So these empty section will be filled with our chart component. We also need to fix these filters part, so they need to be flex, right? Awesome. Now let's create our chart component. So let's expand this window, and I'm going to create a market chart.tsx file, and inside of this file we're going to create our chart using ApexCharts. All right, the Apex chart React component is fairly straightforward. So we basically need to pass three things here. First one is the height, that I'm going to set it to 450, and it's going to accept a options that we're going to define over here, and we're going to pass it here to the options. And next, it's also going to need a series. Well, the data that we're going to pass to this Apex chart, it has to be formatted in some way. And later in this video, we're going to work on a function to format the data that we're going to pass to this chart. So for now, I'm going to use a empty array. Next, I'm also going to add a series prop here, and I'm going to add a type. So this is the data set that ApexChart accepts according to its documentation. So next, we need to define a couple of options here. The first option is a chart. So we're going to hide the toolbar. And the type of our chart will be line. So next, the zoom, we're going to disable the zoom. Now we're going to style the stroke part. And we're also going to disable the grid. So for the y-axis, we need some customizations for labels. Now let's customize our x-axis. All right, here, since we are showing the date for the x-axis, we need to install moment library to format this data properly. So let's install moment. All right, now we can format our time value. And also we're going to remove these two types and add the Apex options type from ApexCharts, so we can have full type safety here. And now let's add a couple of data points so we can test our chart component. And we'll also need to add this to our details component. So here, now let's check out. All right, so if we change the data timestamp, we should see a kind of a currency chart. All right, our chart is working correctly. So next, all right, now we're going to create this price change component. It's fairly straightforward. So we're basically checking if change price prop is greater than 0. We're going to change the text color and as well as the icon from up to down. So let's use this component here inside details view. I'm going to pass a change price prop here. Now let's take a look. All right, as you can see, it's a 40, so we're showing a green with a arrow up. All right, now let's work on the currencies component. All right, if we take a look at our dashboard component, we can see that we've built our details component, the upper sections, and now we're going to build this market currencies component. So let's add that to our components folder. We already have that in our components. So basically our market currencies will contain our market currency cards, and it's gonna loop through the data that is going to be fetched from CoinGecko API and show them on the screen. So our market currency card has a couple of props that we need to define here. The market currency card is going to have a image and name section. Also, we're going to add a chart section here, and we're also going to add a price change section. So let's build them one by one. All right, next we're going to add a chart component here. Let's skip the chart component for now and add our price section. All right, now let's work on our cart chart component. So cart chart component is basically the same as market chart component, but we are going to implement some customization here so we can have a minimal looking chart for our card items. All right, for the chart options, we need a customization for chart section, chart property. We're gonna hide the toolbar. And for the stroke, we're going to apply basically the same style. And we're also going to hide the grid behind the chart lines. Next, we're going to customize our y-axis. We also need a customized tooltip for our charts, so let's add that. Also here, note that since we are not using React components, we won't pass class name here. So we have to set class. So it's basically a plain HTML that we're passing to our tooltip. And finally, we are going to customize our x-axis. So we are done with the chart options, and now we can use this card chart component. So get back to market currency card and let's use the chart component. Here we need to pass a series to test our chart. So I'm going to add some dummy data. So now let's test our card. So we're going to use our market currency card inside our currencies component. We also need to pass these data to our components. So change price to change price, and we later on will use this for fetching card data. So we're going to comment this out for now, and also this chart data. Here I'm just gonna add the market currency card so I can test the card. So the image is going to be here. I'm going to use a sample data from CoinGecko API. All right, now let's fill out the props. Now we also need to add the market currencies to our dashboard section. So here. So now let's take a look at our app. So this is going to be our card. As you can see, we are also going to have a minimal looking chart with each card inside the currencies component. And here we need to fix this background color and the look of this button to fit our card style. So let's get back to card component. And here we need to set the color to primary. And of course, the variant should be border. All right, our button is looking good. And now we're going to work on the API part and connect our application to CoinGecko API. All right, first thing we need to do is to create a service folder. And inside this service, we're going to define a couple of methods to fetch data from CoinGecko API. So we need a fetch market currencies, and also we need a fetch market chart, and also a fetch coin details. Let's install Axios in our project. All right, for better type safety in each function, we're going to add a interface file, and I'm going to paste some interfaces from CoinGecko API. So you can grab this from a project repository that I'm going to share in the description. So back to our fetch functions. All right, now we need to transform this data. To use this data inside our Apex chart, we need to format the data using a formatter function. So I'm going to define a formatter function right after these two other functions. All right, to format each item inside our Sparkline data that we're going to use inside ApexChart, we're going to define a format Sparkline function. So to format them individually. So here we are basically creating a timeline from 7 days ago and appending each timestamp to one of the Sparkline items. So we're going to use these items inside our chart. All right, now we can use format data function inside this fetch market currencies. Cool. All right, now let's create this fetch market chart. All right, now let's implement final fetch function. So now we need a little refactoring here since we're using the base URL on each fetch function. So we can create a Axios instance and use these as a shared instance in each function. All right, now we can write our React query hooks. So I'm going to create a folder named queries. Our first query is going to be our use coin details.ts. So our use coin details is going to fetch our coins, each coin details. So it's fairly straightforward. So we are calling use query to fetch our details using fetch coin details function. and we're returning the result containing the data and the properties that useQuery will return. So in order to use our useQuery, we also need to wrap our main components inside client provider. So let's get into main.tsx, and here we need to create a query client instance and after that we're going to wrap our application inside query client provider. And pass the client we created to the client prop. And with that, we can use our use query details. Next, I'm going to create 2 more hooks for our queries. So let's create use market chart.ts. All right, and this is our use market chart hook. So it's basically the same, and we're using ID and days parameters. And next, we're going to create another hook named use market coins. All right, now we've successfully created our React query hooks. So let's use them and connect our frontend to CoinGecko API. All right, inside details view component, we are going to add a couple of states here. First, we need to add a days state to handle our filters. And next, we need to use our use market chart and use coin details hook to fetch our data for our details view. All right, when we successfully fetched our data here using our query hooks, we need to define a couple of computed states to use inside our details component. So let's define them. All right, now let's use the states inside our render section. So first, we need to handle these filters buttons. And we're also going to replace this using etched coin details. All right, let's now add the series to the chart. we're going to replace the current price with the dynamic data. And we're also going to modify this, and all right, now we need to replace the high and low. All right, now before we handle the error and the loading part, let's comment them for now and take a look at our application. So as you can see, our prices and the low and high are working correctly, and we are also seeing the name, which is Bitcoin, based on the ID that I set here. So for the chart here, we need to remove the placeholder data that we used earlier. So let's open the market chart and pass the series to this data. All right, cool. Now we can see our live market data with the pricing. As you can see, cool. The chart is looking good, but we need to modify the tooltip here. All right, head over to your card chart components, and we need to define a formatter function and replace this part with the new function. So inside the src folder, I'm going to create a folder named utils, and inside utils, I'm going to define a helpers.ts, and inside the helper.ts, I'm going to define my custom tooltip function. So it's fairly straightforward, and we are also going to make this part dynamic. And we are also going to add a text white class. Now we can use our custom chart tooltip function. And we're also going to use it inside market chart. We're going to grab this part from card chart. And here we're going to use the second index of the data. Since we have a different interface, we're going to use the second index, which is going to be Unix timestamp. All right, with that change, we can have our custom tooltip here, and everything is working fine. Now let's handle the is error and the is loading state. So basically, we're going to show a loading bar, a loading circle to whenever our is details loading and is chart data loading is true. So let's add that. And we're also going to replace this loading with a custom component. So next we're going to add our error handling. So for the error, we're going to use a use effect. So we're going to show the users a toast notification whenever our fetching failed. All right, now let's add React Hot Toast to our app. All right, now head over to main.tsx file and let's add toaster component to our root component. And we are also going to add some options. All right, now we can use the toast function to show toast notifications. Here, for the error handling, we're going to show a toast. Next, we're going to create a loading component. So inside components folder, so we are going to use the spinner component from NextUI, so we need to add that to our project. All right, now we need to add it to our Tailwind config file. Now we can use the spinner. All right, now let's use it inside our details view. Okay, now let's test our application. So I'm going to change the network speed and let's reload. All right, it's working, but we're also getting 429. As you can see, our toast notification is also working. So I'm also going to add some CSS classes to the loading component. So I'm going to wrap it inside a div. And now let's reload. All right, it's actually working pretty good. So we're basically having a smooth transitions between the filters. And next, let's work on this market coins section. All right, everyone, now we're going to make these market currencies connected to our CoinGecko API. So we're going to use our hook. All right, now we need to first handle the loading state, then handle the error state. When error is true, we want to return null. Also, we want to notify the users that there's something wrong. So all right. Now finally we can look through our coins list and show a list of cards. And we're also going to delete this sample data since we don't need it anymore. All right, our market currencies component is ready. So let's test it out. So that's our coins list. So we're listing the market cryptocurrencies. And the problem is that we're showing too many items and data points inside this chart. So we only need to show a portion of this chart. Well, in a typical application, you basically will filter this data from your backend. But since we don't have a backend and we are basically consuming the public API, of CoinGecko, we need to filter it ourselves in the front end. And we also need to fix the Unix timestamp here inside this chart. As you can see, it's showing 1970, which is not correct. All right, here we need to change something inside the service index.ts file. Right here inside a format sparkline, we need to add a slice, and we only need to get the 48 last items. So hit save and head over to card chart component, and we're going to fix the formatting here. We're going to use Unix method, and we're going to pass the value, and we're going to transform it to a number. All right, let's test our application. Okay, our chart is looking more minimal, and we're only showing the last 48 items. And our tooltip is actually, our formatting is working correctly. So the next thing is to work on these details buttons. So what we want to happen is when a user clicks on each of these buttons, we want to scroll up and refresh the data for the corresponding coin to show the details for each of these coins. So for this, we have multiple approaches. So basically, in this situations, you don't need a state management library. So you can basically use something like React Context API, and you can also pass it to the parent and pass the ID from the parent to the child. Actually, this details view. So there are a bunch of ways to pass the coin ID, but we are using Zustand in this video. All right, here I am on Zustand demo website. So as you can see, we basically need to create a store, and it will create a hook for us that we can use inside our component. So every component that subscribes to the store will re-render whenever the state that they're subscribing to is changed. So let's install Zustand and learn more about it. So let's back to our code editor and install Zustand. All right, first thing we need to do is to create a folder named store. And inside of this store, I'm going to define a global store. All right, here inside this Zustand store, we're defining a type for our state. So we're basically having a string for storing our ID. Then we need to add a function to set our details ID whenever user clicked a button. So let's get back to our market card. And inside this component, all we need to do is to use details ID. So we're going to use global store, and we're going to use the state set details ID from state. Now, whenever user clicked on this button, we basically need to call a function show details. I'm going to define a function named details, show details. All right, after we set our ID, we want to navigate user to the top of the page. So we need to do one more step to complete this chain. So inside details view, we need to use the store, use global store. So now let's test our application. So here we are showing the Bitcoin by default. So let's navigate down and select Ethereum. All right, now we can see our Ethereum is showing up successfully. So, all right, guys, before we wrap this video up, let's take a look at the responsive mode. So as you can see, we need a padding in both sides. All right, inside the app.tsx file, we just need to remove these part and hit save. Cool, as you can see, it's looking good. And that's it, guys. This is our CryptoCharts application. So we've successfully implemented ApexChart inside React. We've used TailwindCSS to style this beautiful application. And we've also successfully designed this beautiful minimal looking charts inside each of these cards. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you in the next videos.